Okay, so today the topic for today is going to be the CSS grid properties. We have looked at the flex properties, flex container, the fact that we can use that for layout, for making the layout for our site. We have done an assignment. We know how to use the flex container or the flex box property to divide the page into different sections, right? The header, the footer, sidebar, the main content. So we understand the layout. If I say the layout of a site, we know what that is. So today we are looking at the grid. And so the grid is another way to make layout for your site, okay? The page, the web page. If you have to build any web page, you need to divide it into different sections, and that is what we call the layout. And there is a way to do it with less effort and less code. And the flex is one way, but the grid is also another way. And I would say that the grid is more advanced, and it allows you to do things faster. If you know the grid, you can do things relatively faster than the flex. But all those tools are available to you and you can use them. So when I say the flex and the grid, they are part of the display properties that we looked at, CSS display. You can have the block, inline block. You can have the none, which means that the element will never show. But then the display property can become a flex. And if it is flex, then flex properties are available for you to use them. So if the display property is set to grid, then all the grid properties become available for you to use. So now, this is the summary of all the grid properties that we need to be aware of. And then, as you know, there is always the parent div and then the children div. So you have a parent div, and then inside it, you have all these other divs that are in there. So if you set the display property of the parent element to grid, then you have a grid. You have a grid, and the grid is a layout. Don't forget that. And then once you have the grid, then you can do the division of the page using the grid properties. All that we are doing is we are dividing the page into different sections based on the design that we want to do, right? So the homework that you got, you wanted the sidebar to be on the right side. You wanted your footer at the bottom. Footer is always at the bottom though, the header at the top. So it's all about what? Dividing the page intelligently to get exactly what you want in the design. Okay, so once you have the page divided, you have the layout for the web page, every other thing is pretty much easier to do. It's just the regular CSS stuff, properties that you can apply on them. Okay, so as we know, there is always the parent and then the children. So you have the grid parent, and then you have the grid item properties. So there are some properties that are only applicable to the parent container, and there are some that is only applicable to the item container. It is the same concept with a flex. So this concept is not new. And so this table that we see here, the parent properties, I have all of them here. Everything under the first column belongs to the parent, and everything under the second column belongs to the items or the children. Okay. So I also want us to take a look at a pictorial view of the grid container. Like anytime you have a grid container, then what are the parts of the container? What are some of the things that you should think about, right? So with the flex, if you guys remember, either we are going the column direction or we're going the row direction. But you couldn't have the two at the same time. You couldn't have the two at the same time. But with a grid, now you have the two. You have the columns and the row. You have them together at once. So now the grid allows you to combine the column direction. If I say columns, like you're dividing the page into columns like this, 1, 2, 3. And then you can, at the same time, you can still divide it into rows like that. So think of it like a table. Normally grid, they look like a table. So is that concept a little clearer to you guys? Like,
yeah.
If you think of a grid container, think of a table. Thank you, Afi. And what does a table have? What do they have? Tables have columns and rows, right? So the grid has a column. These are the column. So this thing right here is first column, second column, and third column. And then it has rows, row. So what do you think would be the usage of this row over here? For item 1, if I set the row of item 1 to any pixel, what do you think is going to, what do you think is the meaning of that for this item? Let me ask it in 2. If I'm setting the column property for this item 1, this item 1 is just a div, right? It's a container, a small div in there. So this item, if I'm setting the column to be this long, and I'm setting the row to be this long, what does that mean to you? You can see the column dictates what? The width of the item 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Column dictates the width of it. Then the row will dictate the height, right? The height. So, you know, like that. For all these items, you can set some pixels and assign that to the column property. Then you do the same for the rows, and then you are getting the height in the row, right? So that's what we mean by the grid, and it's going to be very easy for you to do layouts using the grid. Extremely easy. You don't have to think about percentages and all of that. It's pretty easy, and you're going to see that very soon. And so this is a grid column. It's understandable. These are grid rows, grid row. And then, so there's another thing that we see, the gaps. You see between this item and this item, there is a gap over there. So this gap here, we are calling it the column gap. So why do you guys think we call this one the column gap? This little space here, column gap. Why do you think we call it column gap? It is the same as
in between the column.
It is between the columns. That's all. It's a space between the columns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So it's a gap. If you want to set the gap, if you want to put some spaces between the columns, you can just use the column gap property and use it. We're gonna learn how to use the gaps. So now this one is a row gap, the same principle, right? Between the rows, a gap between the rows. So what does this kind of reminds you? These gaps. It makes you think of margin, right? It's almost like you are putting margins between them, but the grid gap makes your life pretty easier. So just, if you want to space them out, just use the gap and everything works for you. So the last thing that I want us to look at, you can see some lines over here. Line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. So now think a little bit here, like this is the first item. So there is always a line over here that you don't see, but you can always assume that it's there. This is the first line here, and this is the second line. So these lines allow you to say that, oh, I want item 1 to begin from line 1, and I want it to end at line 2. So if you do that 1 to 2, you can also specify how far this item goes. If you want to say, I want item 1 to begin at line 1 and end at line 3, then it will just expand itself all the way to this place. So these lines actually depend on the number of columns that you have defined. If you say that on this grid, I want to have 3 columns on it, then like if you look at this page that we are looking at, so from here to here is 1 column. You can see that. Now from here to here is also another column. So if this is a grid, which most likely it is, they have forced it to have 2 columns. The first column, they can make it have 3 columns and say the first element, which is this one, should only take one of the space. So line 1 to line 2. And then this whole div, they wanted to take 2 spaces. So they're gonna say take 1 to 3. 1 to 3. It doesn't matter the order, there is a way to do the ordering in such a way that the one that is taking 1 space can be here, and then the one that is taking 2 spaces can be here. You know, it depends on the way you want to do it. And there are many different ways of doing this. One thing is there are different ways of doing the same thing, but all that different ways, you can see them here. It's just a different usage of these properties. And I made it a point to cover all the properties that I found. So there's nothing that is missing here in our learning. So I'm gonna show you how to use the following properties to achieve some of the things that I talked about, right? So we'll get to that. And then now once you go to the item level, then you can use some of these properties also to do some magic on the item. One thing is for sure, this justify content, justify items, these are things that we've seen before. So pretty much the grid also has these properties. I mean, the flex also has these properties. So that's why I separated them. They are not specific to the grid. They kind of works for the flex also. So do you guys have any question before we proceed?
No.
Okay, so now you go to the next page, which is grid properties. I have given the definition and example usages of all the properties. So one thing is for sure, I have grouped the properties under parent and items level to make your life easy. So it is very easy to learn this. But here is just giving you the descriptions of them. I think what is more important is being able to demonstrate, right? How to use them, which is what I'm getting at. But first of all, let's take a quick go through of these things, and then we're gonna look at how to use them in code also. Kind of a demo then. So the first one is the display property. You know, on the parent, you set it to grid. As soon as you do that, what happens? You have a grid container, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with the flex. Once you set the display to grid, you have a grid container, and all these properties become available to you that you can use. So this one is straightforward. So the next property to look at is the template columns, grid template columns. So grid template columns can take values such as this. You can see a length. This length means that any pixels, right? And I'm explaining this one here one time because most of the properties will be using the same values, right? So this is the column. You want to define the template for the column. So this is where you tell the computer that I want to have 3 columns. I want to have 4 columns. I want to have just 1 column. So to do that, we're going to use the template column to do that. And I'm going to show you how to do that very soon. So, but the way you do it, you have to enter the template column. It's a property. So this is the way you enter it. And what values does it take? It will take, you can see here, I'm giving it 3 values, 1, 2, 3. What this means is that I'm going to have 3 columns. If you give it 4 values here, it's going to have 4 columns. And then the first column is going to take this much width. The second column is going to take that much. So once you call the grid template column, it allows you to specify the width of all the columns that you want to have, right? Inside there. And if you want to specify the width, you can do it in pixels, right? You can do it in percentages. So in pixels, that's the length, right? You can specify it in any length. Percentage, we know what it is, right? Percentage of something, maybe the home page, the body, you know, the size of the body, you can take percentage of that and use it. So these are our CSS measurements, right? But now we know the order also. So the order will take all the spaces available. Like in this case, if you put this, you can put order at the end, and then it's going to take any other space available for the third column, the fourth column. So we know what the order is. We studied it. The main content. The main content is going to take only the amount of space that it needs for the content of the element, right? The elements that are in it. So like it's a column, and you're saying that if there is any element that comes under this column, make the width, decide the width of it based on the content of that element. Decide the width of the element based on the content of the element. So, and then the max width, max content, it is something we've seen. Take all the space available in order to be able to fit the content in there. So if the content is very long, then you keep taking that much space as much as possible, you know. But of course, you can force it. If you, but at least if you are using this units, then you just want to be careful that what you're doing makes sense. That's all. We know what the fit content is. That is what we looked it up also. So this repetition, the repeat is very powerful. Repeat allows you to just specify only one unit, one width, and say repeat it for 4 times. Repeat this width for 5 times. In other words, I want to have 5 columns here, and each of them should have this particular width that I specify. We're going to see all that in code. So the min max allows you to set the minimum width for the column, and then the maximum width for the column. If I say minimum, you can see when I reduce the size of the screen, you can say that as I'm doing it, everything on this page is also getting smaller. But you can say if it gets smaller to a certain point, you don't want it to go smaller anymore. You want it to stop shrinking. Because if it shrinks anymore, then it will be hard for you to read what is in it. So you can specify the width, the minimum width that you want. And then if I'm also expanding, you can see that things are getting bigger. So you can also specify that I don't want things to get bigger past a certain width. So it all depends on what you are doing, but this min max value allows you to do that. And I've given the definition over here. You set the range, minimum and maximum values. So if you go to this site, you're going to understand it. The template rows allows you to also specify the number of rows, but at this point, we need to demonstrate at least this one here. So I also have the demonstration over here. You see, I have another place called the demo. So parent level properties demo. And this is a demo for the grid template columns. Let's try to do this, replicate this one. Sometimes we are not going to replicate because I also have the code over here. You can try at home. Okay, so let's create a folder for today's work. So CSS day, today's day what? Day 8. Day 8, and then I'll say grid. Grid properties. So once we get in here, we can just add a file. I'll say grid template columns .html. So let's just see how this works in action. Move that. Save it. Okay, so in here, I just want to get a template that we can use. We'll put our styles up here. So in here, we're gonna have a div. And within this div, we're gonna have multiple divs. So I'll say A, making the content A. And then you can put as many stuff in here as you want. So I'm gonna say B, C. So that's the content, right? B and E. So now, let's give this an ID of a class of container. Normally, you can call it grid container. That's much better, but you can call it anything you want also. So at least grid container lets you know that you are now, this is a container. So over here too, we can also put some stuff here. And just say class equals, and then I want to give them the same name. It's gonna be grid item, but it's kind of too long also, but what can we do? Just do it like that, grid item. Okay, so in here.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
How did you write all of those lines at the same time?
How did I? Okay,
The div class.
I'll show you. So you can put your cursor over here, and then you press on Shift plus Alt. You know the Alt key?
Yeah. So Shift and Alt.
And Alt. Yeah, then you can click anywhere else that you want on the same line. If I click here, see, it will select everything up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so now if I put space, if I type anything, it will just happen on both lines.
Okay.
So it's a keyboard property.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Just to help us do things faster. So of course, if you want to practice this at home, I set the display and I also set the height, so you can just look at that and do the same thing here. But let me also get this grid item. So we can see that the background of these items are kind of blue. So let's just do that. Background color, set it to light blue. I'm not sure if the color is exactly light blue, but it doesn't matter. Something bluish is fine. I don't think we set any height over there. So let's just, so, you know, it's a container, and without doing anything, let's see what we have. Without doing anything on the container, this is what we have, right? And there is no margins over here. So it looks like everything is within one container, but they are not. So let's put some margin there so we see what we are doing. Margin of say 1 pixels, separating them out like that. So let's see. So we can see that everything is in its container. This is the default behavior. And of course, this grid container, let's give it a border so we can see it, say 1 pixels and solid. These are all not really what I want to show yet. So just cosmetics. So now we can see that they all live in a container. Okay. So now this is a regular container. You can see it's a regular container. We didn't set anything on it. So let's change the display. So right now, what is the display, the value of the display for this container right now? Before I do anything, what is the value
100.
Display property of the container, the bigger container, the parent container. In fact, all the containers here, the divs, all these divs, what is the display property now? Look at their behavior. They are taking the whole
Block.
block. Yes, it's block. So don't forget these things. So I don't want it to be block. I want it to be grid. That's what we are doing. And as soon as you do that, everything becomes a grid container. And then now all the properties we learned become applicable. So even with a grid, you can see nothing really is happening. And it's okay, but that's the way it works. For flex, everything would have been on the same line, but this is how the grid behaves. So you have to tell it how many columns it needs. And the way you do it, that's going to be what we are just looking at, grid template columns. And so here we can specify, let's say 200 pixels. Don't put any space there. Make the second column 100 pixels. And then the third column, you can make it say auto. Okay, wait a minute. Let me make this 140 pixels. If I do this, now I'm telling the grid container, I want to have 3 columns in this container. And remember, that is the entire layout of the site. Remember the homework that you did. After you get the layout this way, then you can start putting your content in it. Imagine if your site is going to look like this, the whole site, and then you have all this space here that you are not using. That's very, very ugly looking site. So, right? But this is what we did. You can see that the grid template columns is giving us this feature. Do you guys understand this one?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any questions?
No.
No questions?
Mm-hmm.
So I have one question for you.
I see it.
Sorry. Do you have any question?
Can I see the whole website by itself?
Oh, okay, sure. This is the.
Mhm.
So here there are 4 columns. What I showed you has only 2. So I can add a third. I will ask you that. But I'll wait for you in case you have a question.
No, and can I see what we did? So.
Okay. What we did today, we are using the Firefox browser.
Okay. No, I don't have any questions.
Yeah. So this one has 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, their pixels are different from ours. If we use the same pixels, it will be the same. And you can see I didn't give any height to my container, but over here they gave the container some height. I don't think it will change much. But you can see how many elements are in this one, the one on the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many elements do we have? 5, right? So we have 5. That's slightly different from what they got. But my question is, why do you think that? So this grid container, we say that we want 3 columns. So it gave us 3 columns and we specified the width. So that's it. Now the rest of them, they went down. Why do you think they went down?
Is it because we didn't specify the width for them?
Say that again, please.
Is it because we didn't specify the width for the last 2, for the D and E?
That's a good point. Yes, it's because if we had added extra columns, they would have occupied it. We didn't, so they don't have any column to go under. So these ones, we call them overflow. If you are saying that I want to have 3 columns here, and then you give it five divs, that means there's an overflow. The normal thing would be that you're gonna only have 3 items in here. Because you want 3 columns and you want everyone to take one column. This is the normal behavior. But here's the case where you have provided more than 3 divs. Remember, these are divs, right? You're gonna put a lot of things in there anyways, right? So there is an overflow, and when overflow happens, they move to the next row and put those divs over there. So this is the default behavior. When we go forward, you can tell them that I only want 3 columns, but if there is an overflow, if they give me more than 3 elements, grid items, then the overflow, give them as columns. Don't put them on the row, put them as columns. So that is also something you can do. And I'm trying to define all the terms that we need, and then things will be very, very fast as we go. So now, right now we are able to specify the exact width that we want, right?
Mm-hmm.
The assumption is that there is no overflow. So if there is an overflow, you can say that overflow, I don't want overflow to have the same column width as this one. So you can specify a width for the overflow column. We're gonna get to it. When that is happening, you call that implicit units. Implicit, is it implicit values or implicit units? Yeah, implicit values. So we have explicit and implicit. So explicit means that you are specifying exactly what you want for each column. And then you are saying if there is an overflow, then the overflow give it this much width. So we're gonna see that later on, but I just mentioned it. I guess it's gonna confuse you guys a little bit. Sorry about that. So now my question is this. I want you guys to tell me something. Remember the column template. It's a template, right? Template is a template. So you are given 3 columns, and look at the way I specified it. This is a very hard-coded value, right? It's hard-coded, so it's not even changing if the screen is big or not. See, it's overflowing now because you forced it. You are forcing the value, and that's what we don't want. Normally, we want to use percentages so that if the parent container is moving, the size will also be changing, right? That is the best design, mostly. So now my question is, based on what we know right now, I'm saying first column should be this, second column should be this. If I make this one auto, what do you think is going to be happen? I'm saying that the last column, the width should be auto. What do you think is going to happen if I refresh this? So this one, I'm making it the width as auto.
But it take up the
remaining space, right?
Yeah.
Take the remaining space and boom. Okay, that's good. So now that's a good one. Let me go back and then go back here. I make this one 140. Now let me make this auto. Can you tell me what this is going to do?
Which one did you make auto? Can I see the code again? Which one did you make auto?
I made the middle column. See?
Oh, okay. So it's going to, the B is going to take up most of the space. And because 140 is going to be smaller than
at the end here, right?
The A, yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So 140, and then everything else will be given to the B. That is the use of the auto here. Okay, so this is good. And can we now move on? If you want to set the height is just a regular property. It doesn't have anything to do with the grade. So by using the height of the grade, it's fine. So in our example, we just said this 15 VH. What is the VH? Do you guys remember what it is? So you can make it bigger, right? You can make it even way bigger. It's all up to you. Of course, remember, this is a template. So at the end of the day, you could even make it 100% so that it occupies the whole screen for you. But VH is what? Is the view height, right? Let's not forget it, viewport height. So the height, you want 55% of that. And so if it's a unit, we already covered that, so it's not important. So that is the template column. Now let's look at the template rows. So I'll just copy this and paste it. But we are moving to the next property. Paste. So, oh, okay, let me demonstrate this thing too. Very important, the repeat. Over here, we can also use the repeat. I said that you can just give only one of the width and then just wrap it around the repeat function. The repeat is a function and it allows you to specify how many columns. You say 4, and each of them should be this long. So if we do this one too, this is what we have. If I put 5 over here, then you can predict that this will come up here, right? Because right now it's only 4 columns and this overflows. So if I make it 5 now and refresh, then we have 5 columns like this. And so now let me also teach you one more unit that we haven't seen. This unit is only available to grid containers. They call it a fractional unit. Fractional unit. And guys, I think that anytime that you're developing any application for yourself, you're doing the front end, try to begin from the grid or the flex, right? Because that allows you to get the layout you want, and then you can start putting content in. It makes your life very, very easy. So I think it should always be the starting point for you. So here we gave it 200 pixels and it's giving us exactly that. What if I want to divide the space over here evenly among all the columns? So evenly, there's something called fractional unit. Fractional unit FR is a unit that the grid uses. You can say 1 fractional unit. 1 fractional unit means that divided into equal parts of 1 and then assign it to each of the columns. So in other words, divided evenly, it means divided evenly. So I save this, and then if I come, you see, it will divide it evenly and share it for them, for the columns. So the fractional unit is something that is very useful that we're gonna keep using a lot, So now look at the grid. You see, when it's just using the template column, we have all this available to us. We can just put our content in it. So like the homework that we did some time ago, you could just make this 3 and then do this. Sorry. If I just want to, because we divided it evenly. We just want to divide the whole space evenly. So now we have there is an overflow. So let's remove it. I'm trying to give you the layout for the assignment that we did some time ago. Very easy layout. So now you have your 3 columns. So we you just want to put a little bit of space between them so you can use the gap. So you can use you can say gap column. That we're gonna learn it. Is it column gap? Let me see. Let me just use the gap because the gap it combines the rows and the columns for now. So you can just say 5 pixels, and then it will put the gaps in there. I mean, if we wanted it slightly bigger, we could just make it 25. We're gonna demonstrate the gaps also. Again, it's just a demo, right? Can you guys see that this is very similar to what we did before?
Mm-hmm.
The US, and it's so responsive, you can see. Responsive. So all that we have to do now is to put the content in there, the images and that. Then you are done. So you can do things very, very fast if you understand the grid. And essentially everything that you can do with a flex, you can do on the grid. And the grid will give you more powers to do things faster. But it's okay to know the two. Sometimes if you don't need all the superpowers, you can just stick to the flex. Yeah, okay. So now let's move on. As I'm saying all of this, it will allow us to just speed through some of the other places. So we are going to look at the template rows. Like we mentioned, you are thinking of the grid as a table, the columns. We just told him the number of columns you want. Now you also have to tell them how many rows that you want. Do you want 1 row, 2, 3? You have to tell them. So the template rows allow you to set that. And just so that you know where we are now at this point in the demonstration. So let's look at the image over here. So you can see this example that I gave you. Here it was columns, now it is a row. You have template row, you specify the width of the row. You're saying that the first row should be this tall, the height should be this, and then the height of the second should be that. So let's just demonstrate it. It's the same concept, you know. And then I'll try to combine them also. So for here, instead of just saying the template columns, I'll just say template row. And why is it not happy? Let's see why. Why is it not happy here? So great template. Oh, there was an S that was missing. Okay, so now I'm saying that I want to have 3 rows in this table. You can see I didn't specify any number of columns. And if you don't do that, it's gonna act like you just want 1 column. That's why you didn't specify it. So now let's see what this will give us. Oh, actually, I should have done. Okay. Okay, so let me just rename this one here for the rows. It doesn't matter, but because we are not going to give these files to anybody anyway, so it doesn't matter. So we have this. Let me just make this explicit, say 40 pixels, and save. So now if we view in browser, this is what we have. So there's only 1 column, and then it's taking, the first column is taking a height of, we are talking about the rows. So it's taking a height of 200 pixels. The second one is taking a height of 40. Then the last one is also taking a height of 140. Now the rest of them are the overflow, and the overflow, they just gave it any height that they wanted. This is the default height for the overflow. It looks like this height is dependent on the content. It's kind of fit content. Can you guys see that this is fit content? It's taking exactly the height of the content. Yeah. Okay. So that is the template row. What other thing can we do? Of course, we can specify the length of the column. I mean, the width of the column, because we didn't specify it. It's taking the whole space. Let me see over here if I specified it. So I didn't show you, but let me try to see. I don't want to put any template column here, but you can use them together too. Grid template columns. Let me just specify this and make it 200 pixels. So what am I saying here? I'm saying there is only 1 column, and the column should be 200 pixels in width. So if I do that, clearly this will not take the whole space. It will just make it short. Okay, and here too, you can still use the repeat and the fractional unit. You can say repeat and say you want every row to be 100, and then you want to repeat. Oh, sorry. You want to have 4 rows in here with each of them should be 1 FR. Like this. Why do you think we have this mistake? It's because there is no semicolon at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And once we do that, you can see it evenly divided the space for the 4. And then the other one is an overflow. So it gave it the default behavior. But of course, you can make it 5 and then there is no overflow. But you are saying I want to have 4 rows over there, but you're giving it 5. So it's like what you're doing doesn't make sense, but sometimes it's possible. You could have that behavior. That's why they allow you to force it there. So if you know there will be 5 records over there, you want to make it 5 like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can see the template column, template rows. That's all you are using, and it's allowing you to do amazing things very, very fast. So that's what I have demonstrated over here. So there is something called grid template. The grid template is a shorthand property, and it allows you to combine the two at one go. So you can just write one statement and it will allow you to set the grid template columns and the grid template rows at one time. So that is the next property. So just the templates like this. And I'm showing you how I'm doing this because when you go home, you can easily do the same thing. Just try to practice to get familiar with the properties. So this one is grid template. We can just put it down here. Grid template. So always the rows have to come first. So template rows. Over here, the rows is this. You can just copy exactly what's there and put there. And then you put this / over there. You don't need this. And then you can also specify the columns. If you just put only one value here, you are saying that you want only one column. So this one is going to give us the same output as the one that we did. But what if I want to have two columns here? I just have to put a space and add the next column, say 300 pixels, whatever dimension that I want. Why don't we try one of the key things we learned here? Let's use main content. Because at the end of the day, what are we doing? We are just specifying a width. So main content and boom. Right? The contents are very small. So this is what main content is doing for us. Is it nice, guys?
Yeah.
If I want to have 3 columns, what can I do? So this is just about knowing what's available, the properties and what they do. And I have to be honest, the notes that I put there is very good. So you can always use that as a handbook if you are designing any UI. Just go there, refresh yourself, and just, practice. But I can tell you that the grid properties are very easy to remember. Right? It's just right there. So now, if I want to have a 3rd column here, what do you guys think I should do? I only have 2 columns. Remember, the bottom part is the columns. When I have 2, if I want to have the 3rd one, what should I do? I just put another dimension here, another width, and then you can be creative as much as you want, But overflow is happening and all that. Because, you only set 3 columns, so this one's cannot go. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we just did the template. Now we are about to learn the most important, or one of the most important properties here. They call it the grid template areas. I think I will switch these two because this one should come below. This template areas goes with this one here, this value. So we're going to do them side by side. So let me demonstrate. The template areas is very powerful. And, remember you're doing a template, right? So let's just say grid template areas here. It's all about the layout of the page. Let's not forget that. So in here, let's see how that works. You can look at the definition. Template areas. It can be none. You can give it names and strings over here. Some of the values it takes. So it actually specifies named grid areas. So it specifies named grid areas and their placement within the grid. So you have to give a name to grid areas, and then it will specify the placement of those names within the container. So now, what I mean by this is, in the homework that you did, you have the header section, you have the sidebar, you have the footer, you have the news section. So this is the areas of the grid, right? So the template areas allows you to specify where they go. So if you want the header to be at the top, the template areas is how you do it. And it's very straightforward. And you're gonna fall in love with this one here. So I want us to do something similar to the homework. So there was a header, there was a sidebar, and there was a folder, and there was a main content. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4 divs in here. So let's remove one, right? And here we are calling a grid item. I can choose to call this header because the first div will be our header. The second one will be the news. Thank you, news. Then we can say sidebar.
Sidebar.
Okay, and then the last one will be footer. Yes, footer. So now, actually, this will make it's all right. It's still gonna work. So let's just remember it's a parent level property, so template areas. And then the way it works is this. You can see here we have A. So this A is a name of an area, right? So in our case, we are calling the area the header area. So you can say you want the header area. Let's assume that there are three columns on the page, and you want the header to take the first or the three. So the 3 columns, you want the header to take the whole space, so you have to assign all the space to it. So now we move to the next line. So you have to put it in a bracket. It's a string. It works like a string. Put it in a quotation mark, sorry. So move to the next line. You are just defining the area very intelligently. And you are saying that on the second side, I want to have the news. And I also want to have the news, and then you want to have the sidebar. And then you move down. Sorry. It's so crazy the way this works, but it is so powerful. So you can see the footer was taking all the bottom part, right? So the way you do that is to just say footer. So essentially you are trying to say that, oh, I want to have 3 columns in this grid, and I want the header to take the whole space for the first row. Now for the second row, I want the news to take 2 parts of it, and then the sidebar to take 1. Then the third row, I want the footer to also do that. So now if we look at this one, let's see what happens. Nothing will happen. And nothing is happening because it's looking for a grid area. So you are saying grid template areas, but we haven't defined the areas yet. So you have to call this one area, give it an area. So, this is a div, you have to assign it to an area. But right now you have defined the areas over here, but you haven't assigned it to any of these divs. So what we are doing is very confusing because I'm using the same names, and I'm sorry for that. So you can just say, we could have used different names. All I'm saying is that for this whole thing, I want that to have a grid area of header. So it means it will fall into the place of the header there. Put that. So I'm surprised why the color is white, but we'll see. Okay, so now you do the same thing for the news. This one's, remember, it's not that useful, just to give it some colors, In fact, we can even change the colors here. Let's make this red, make this blue. Oh, another blue again. Oh, okay, blue is fine. And then make this yellow. I'm just changing the background color. It has nothing to do. So I want the news div to take the area of news. And I want the header No, the sidebar. To take the template area of sidebar. So again, I'm sorry for using the same name, so it can be confusing. Oh, sorry. Go back. And then I want this to have the template area. So I guess it is a grid area because we have defined it over here. So we just have to assign these areas to our elements. That's all. So let's save this and see if it works. And it's working.
Looks nice.
Yeah. Can you see how fast we did that? It's very, very fast. And it's the algorithm is there, you just use it. That's all. Right. The syntax is there, just use it. So our footer, our header, and then the sidebar. But we just defined it like this. So let me show you the trick here. What this is happening is that it's dividing the space evenly into 3 columns. And then the first one, you just assign all the whole space to 1. And then here, it's like 2:1. The ratio is 2:1 here. If you wanted this to be slightly smaller, then you have to don't divide it into 3, divide it into say 5 or 6, and then only give one to this. So this one is very flexible, but mostly the most I see people go is 12, and I'll show you why it is 12. As we go forward, you will see that normally you have to divide the whole space into 12 little equal pieces. Then you can specify that, oh, this element should take 8 of them, this element should take 9 of them, this one. So it's conventional to always have 12 divisions, and you can give all the 12 divisions to one div, to one area, and that's fine. But it's also flexible. So let's just add more columns here, making it 5. So, and then here I'm saying out of 5 columns, I want to give the news. I want the news to occupy 4 of them. So all that I'm doing is that, can you see I'm making the news bigger and I'm making the sidebar smaller. And I want the footer to take all the 5. So it's flexible. You can see now what we got. See, so it's very flexible. You can adjust it whichever way you want. Do you guys understand this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
imagine, yes, right? Imagine how long it took you guys to do this, right? With a flex.
Right.
But this is just straightforward. You just have your grid container, and then you define the areas. You can use A, it's all fine. Then so your box one, which is in this case we are calling it the header, just assign it to the grid area A. See what I did here? And then you have this. And also see here what I did. So like here I'm saying A, then I'm saying B, and I'm also I'm adding more rows here. So I'm giving an idea that I want in terms of the height also. I want the middle row to be bigger than the others. And so you can see that that space is bigger and this one is smaller. So you can be flexible, you know, but this template allows you to just do that, define the areas and then just assign it. So here I'm using 12 units. And you can see my sidebar location goes all the way down. You can be creative and do whatever you want, but I have to warn you, you cannot do something like this. You cannot say you want the footer to begin this row over here and then continue at the bottom. It doesn't make sense. You cannot have the div to be like a curve. If you're doing this, you're making the div to behave like it is a curve. You understand? It's like instead of it going straight, you are saying, I want you to begin from here and at the same time, occupy the whole space down there. So this one has to be a completely different div, different area. for this to work. And if I try to view this, we have an error. So when you have very unpredictable behavior like this, you normally, it tells you that you've done something that doesn't make sense. So I did experimented about this. So yeah, that's a great template areas. Very, do you guys, can you see the power of this one?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fact that it makes you do things very fast, you know. Okay, so now where are we? We finished with this 4, and we are going to look at the gaps. So column gap, that's the property. So let me just copy. Let me copy this and use. I mean, I don't even know why I keep copying. We could just keep doing it from here also. Let's just keep doing it. Okay, just a little confusing. Just paste it, paste here. And let me call this gaps. You know, just spacing between the elements. So just say gaps. I mean, I can give it a better name than this. So guys, I'm just showing you what is out there at your disposal. And in case you need to do your own project and all, one of the best ways you can do it. So this is what we had before. So we already put a gap over here, but let me add more properties in here. 9 of them. So we have template columns. Let me add some rows over also, because now we know what they do. You can have columns and rows. It's all up to you. But I can leave it the same. So if we just refresh this, we have this. Because I have the gap. So let me remove the gap. We're gonna go slowly. So like I said, the gap is a shorthand property. You can call it a combo property. So the first thing is the column gap. So if I get rid of this, what do we have? There's no gaps in here. So this is what we got. I may have put some, I did put this margin here. That's what you're seeing the space. I can leave the margin there, I can take it off. It doesn't matter. So if I take off the margin and I save it, we still have the margin there. Oh, I thought I took it off. I did not. But I don't really need to take it off too, but now we have this. It looks like they are all in one container and they are not. So let me just bring the margin back. It's all right. But, let's just stick to grid properties. It's better. So we don't have to use the margin. Okay. So now we have this. So I'm going to add a column gap. So column gap, which we all know what it is. Put a gap between the properties in the column direction. You can make it 15 pixels, any dimension you want. And if I refresh, we have this. This one is clear, right? And if you look at here, the demo, the demo, so the gaps, I have all of them in one place. So this is the column gap of 30 pixels. So let's do the row gap. So we can leave the column gap over there. We don't have to, but we can just do the row gap of 15. And what do we get for this? So it puts the row gaps in there. Of course, if you take the column gap, then you only have the rows over there. But now the combo property is the gap. You can just specify it one time. If you say gap, it means do it for both columns and rows. Because essentially that's the only thing you can do. Right? So if you just use gap, it works for all of them. And so that is all about the gaps. Nothing fancy, but very useful. So with that, we finished with the 3 of this. So now we are going to do this one. See, it's going very, very fast. I'm sure that within the next few hours, 1 hour, we're gonna be done. Or probably less than that. Okay, so grade auto columns, auto columns. So right now, let's do the auto column first. So of course you can look at the definition here, but I'm just putting it in words, right? So grade column sets a gap between the columns. Auto columns. So implicitly created columns. So like I mentioned, the explicit columns. Explicit columns are when you specify the columns like this. But implicitly created columns is, the overflow columns. How do you want to treat them? So to demonstrate that, let me remove this from here. First of all, this is implicit. So 3 columns and everything will just overflow to the next line. What if I don't set any columns here? If I don't set any columns, then we have something like this. It will take all of them as one column, but the column has no width. So you can just use the grade auto columns to set one width for all of them as well. So these auto columns will work properly when we combine it with another property. So we'll get there very soon. So I just set one property here and one width column, what do you call it? Width, and it's kind of applying to all of them like that. But so essentially the auto columns, this is all there is to it. The auto columns is not fancy by itself. But once we add the other property, you're gonna see it in action properly. So let's just do the auto rows. The auto rows works very well by itself. So here we can specify the columns, and then, so just auto rows. Again, this is doing exactly the same as what we did for the columns. We didn't specify any row, just specify the width one time, and it just applies to everything. But let me just add some template columns here so that things will make more sense. We'll see what we are doing. So, I just want to have, say, 3 columns here. So repeat 3 columns. And I want it to have one fractional unit, which means, equal division among the whole space. So we have 3 columns and I have how many items? 9 of them. So there is overflow. And how do I specify the rows over here? You can also specify something here. You can also specify the rows. You can say grade template rows, and then say you want to have two rows over here. So this is explicit definition of the number of rows that you want. Actually, let me make this 2 columns also, so that we can have a lot of things overflowing. This one here, explicitly, you are saying there's going to be 2 columns and there's going to be 2 rows over there. So essentially, you're just expecting 4 elements. But now we give you way more than 4. So the rest of them are going to overflow. So how should you treat the overflow rows? This is when you have to specify that I want any other overflow. Actually, let me use a fixed unit here so we can see, say 300 pixels. We can say if there is an overflow, make it 50 pixels. Right. This is the story that you are telling. Let me remove this for now and see. It will give it some height, the default height, right? So this is what we have, 300 pixels here. But the overflow, we didn't set the weight for the overflow, so we got some default behavior. So we can now use the auto rows. So auto here is saying in case of overflow, make the weight say 100 pixels. Sorry. Toward the row direction. So now the overflows, now they all have 100 pixels. You can see the overflow pixel is different from the explicit pixels. So that's the auto rows, automatic rows. And that's how that works. And let's see what other properties are there, and then we can use them together. So the auto flow, this is auto columns, auto row, auto flow. This is very powerful. Essentially pretty much the last property for the parent. This is a combo property. So the auto flows is the auto rows, right? Repeat 3 times. If you read this, you're gonna understand it. 3 columns. I want only 1 row of 200 pixels. Every other thing is an overflow. Make it 70. That's what that is. I'll give another example there. And now let's look at the auto flow. So auto flow is saying that if there is an overflow, where do you want the overflow to go? Like by default, you can see that the overflow always goes to the row direction. The overflow didn't create additional columns, it just created additional rows, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so now because of the auto flow, the auto flows property, you can now say auto flows, you can say auto flows, and then just specify why is it wrong? No, usually you can just type it so you don't make mistakes with the spelling. Auto flow, there's no S, so I have to remove the S from here. So auto flow, you are just specifying the direction of the overflow. If there is an overflow, you want it to go column. Now let's see what this is. You can see suddenly the overflow has come here. And also the overflow doesn't set the width, right? So this is when, like I said, this is when the auto columns property becomes useful. If you have the auto flow set to column, now you can now specify what you want the width to be, say 100 pixels in the column direction, and now it's gonna work. You can see it made it 100 pixels. You can make it 50. It's all up to you. You're just controlling the overflow, right? You're not, this is what you really expect. So that one, the explicit definition will take care of it. You can see that we're almost at the end of the parent level properties. So it's going down very, very fast. And this is kind of more intuitive. And a lot of people just use the grid because of that. Okay, so what if you want the overflow to go to the row direction? That's kind of the default property, the default behavior anyway. So it's exactly what it was before. Of course, you can increase the dimension. So now if the direction is row, you cannot say auto row here. You have to say auto. Cannot say auto column. You have to say auto rows. And then I mean, this, you have to make this bigger so you can see it. Remember, you can specify any dimension you want. So the automatic columns are now bigger than the regular one. So you can do anything. So that is what the auto flow is. But there is something more to the auto flow that I want to mention, which is very, very crucial. Auto flow takes 3 values, row, column, and then it doesn't matter what you have here. There is another property, another value that it takes. I want to demonstrate with a column. Here you can say dense. This dense value dictates the way this container is organized. So when you say dense, do you guys know the meaning of dense? And what is the opposite of dense? The opposite of dense. If you say something is densely populated.
It means a lot.
Too much, like many.
It's many. And
Yeah,
it's densely populated is many in one place, right?
in
Fully
one place.
scattered.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about sparse? Sparse. Sparse.
Sparse,
Yeah.
scattered,
Scattered
spread.
or spreaded or scattered. Yes. So yeah. So the default behavior here is going to be the sparse. So you don't even, they don't make you enter it. And I'll prove to you what I mean by that. And I want us to see the difference. It's very, very good. So I have the demo here, but we can also do it. I just want to try to. So here we can just give it two rows here. Instead of making a fractional unit, let me make it fixed unit for now, so we can see what we are doing. So I'm actually specifying the columns, the explicit, and then the rows are also there, 2 rows. And auto flow direction is column. Let me remove this dense for now. So it's the sparse. Then I'm trying to repeat what is here. But so they have auto flow column and then auto rows. Why are they setting auto rows? We'll see why. Let's view this and see. So now we have this. Of course, our container height is now very small. We can make it 70 to contain it. Even 70 doesn't, so make it like 80. Because if we were using percentages, then we won't have this issue, but it doesn't matter. Now let's see what we can do here. Auto flow is column. I want to be able to demonstrate the need for that. So you can pick these items and give them different widths. So let me say, I'm gonna call this grid item 1, and I'm gonna call this grid item 2. So grid item 1, grid item 1. Also, there is one thing that we haven't learned. So, but I will use it anyways, and then when we get there to be easy. So grid item 1, which is this element here. I want to say that I want this element to take 2 spaces instead of 1. So remember the lines 1, 2, 3. So I can say grid item 1. How do you even specify that? So that is there is a term for that. I think it's grid column. And you can say span up to 3. Is that a property? Yeah, that's the property. So let me make this slightly bigger so we see what we are doing. I'm just rearranging the stuff, right? I'm causing the things to be, I'm causing them to be rearranged in a bad fashion so that there will be spaces between them. And then you can see the dense and the sparse. Now something tells me to just make these things fill up the whole space. So let me just use the 1FR, maybe to look more beautiful if we do that. 1FR. Sorry, then this is 1. So if we do this, so now it's filling the whole space. So because I'm making the first grid span to 2 places, it does this, and then the next item, which is the B is supposed to take half of the space, but they didn't have half of the space, I think. So they moved it down the second line. Because kind of it won't fit over there. Something like that. It won't fit over there. So this will not fit. So they moved it down. And then remember it's A, B, C. Oh, so I can make these names unique also so we will not get confused. Sorry, A, B, C, D. So this is a very important thing. That's why I'm covering it. E, F, E, F, G, H, I to say. So it's supposed to go A, B, C, D. So A. So why is the E not covered? So E is item 2, yeah. So we give it a different class. So I'm gonna make it also take 3 spaces. So let's see. Okay, so this is taking 3 spaces and we are seeing this. Okay, so I'm just trying to create spaces between them. Sometimes it's not easy to know exactly how to create the space, but we can try. So let's make this one take, say, 4, span up to 4, and let's see what we get. Okay, so once I do that, you can see now B has moved down. E is also there. So there is an arrangement that is happening, but how do I really create a space? I'm thinking. Okay, so this is gonna be tough. Okay, so let me see. So the rows over here, let me try to replicate this. Let me make, instead of fractional units, let me just give it explicit units. I don't want them to be the same size. If they're the same size, maybe it will be hard for me to create that space. So let me just use some of the values that we have here. 200 pixels. If they are not evenly, we might be able to see this better. Okay, so let's go back. If they are not evenly distributed. Okay, so now, I'm going to let this F here take two columns. So you can do anything. See, right towards the column direction, I'm making this one take about 3 spaces, or maybe 4 even. So now let me make this smaller here, and then I'm gonna let the G. So the G is item. Let me make it item 3, and then call it out here. Dot that. I don't know where this line came from. Do you guys see that line over there? This line here?
Yeah, it's purple.
How did it come there? I don't know. So see the grid. Now I'm gonna use the grid row because I want you to span toward the row direction. You're gonna learn that very soon. This is a grid item property. And now that we are using it here, our life will be very easy once we get it. So we have 2 columns. We have 2 rows over here. So the lines are 1, 2, and 3. So let me say span up to 3. And then if we refresh that. Okay, now I think I achieved my goal. So can you see that because this is now hitting here, we have this space here that is unused.
Mm-hmm.
And when this is happening, this is what we call a sparse. It is, the items are sparsely populated. So they don't care if they are leaving a bigger space at the back. They will just, they leave it. But if you make it densely populated, then before they put anything here, they will look they will gonna check if there is any place where it can fit, and then they will put it there. If they don't find any place where this can fit, only then they will put it here. So the dense means that I want you to fully pack the place. Don't make them sparse, right? You don't make them scattered all over. So sometimes this is a template, right? So you can have this behavior happening. So now let me just set, it's sparsely populated, so there is a bigger space there and that's not being used. So the way to make it dense is just add the next value here. Thanks. And it goes with the auto flow. Let's not forget. So these are just things I was doing to create this behavior. But all that I care about is the fact that if you make it densely populated, then look at what happens. See, this one comes here. Because it's using the space very, very judiciously. And sometimes, depending on your layout, you're going to have some big spaces around. So if you set it to dense, then it's a good thing. At least they will use all the spaces available as much as possible. Is that understandable?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, some of these things, so there are a whole tutorials on them. And you can see what I did here. The auto flow, I didn't put the dense over there. But you can see this span, I was using the span. Oh, I even put it over here so that people can see that I was using the span to get this behavior. So because I set it to dense now, it moved this line back here to utilize the space well. Understood?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now here, auto flow, just this, everything that is here, you know, this is just more elaboration, kind of throwing more light on this one. So with that done, we are going to perhaps the most difficult parent level property, which is the grid. So the grid is a shorthand for pretty much everything that we've done. So remember, this template is a shorthand for columns, template columns, and template rows. And you know, the gap is a shorthand for column gap and row gap. And then, you know, auto flow, it's not exactly a shortcut. It's just you use it along with this. But now the grid is a shorthand for everything out there. Okay, so but it follows a certain behavior. We probably will not demonstrate, but I'll show you. I'll show you from here. Just mention a few things. Yeah. So shorthand for grade. Let me zoom in. So the way that grade works, so there are certain things that it doesn't make sense for you to combine them. And there are things that make sense to combine them to get what you want. Let's look at the first illustration. Once again, when you see the note like this, you can think of this whole thing as an entire page. So I just do a lot of demos and then I make the code print them this way. So now look at this template, this grade. I just use the grade keyword here. Don't confuse it with the value for the display. It is just a shorthand property. And the top part allows you to set the dimensions for the row. And then the bottom allows you to set the dimensions for the columns. So that is one of the use cases. You can see that this one, the way I'm using the grid right now, it is the same as the grid template. I didn't put that down here, but grid template also does the same thing. If I use the grid template over here and call this, it will work on this. So you can see I want the rows are the first 100 pixels. Auto means whatever that's left, and then 300 pixels. So if this is 100 and this one should be smaller. So I may have made a mistake here. It should have been a smaller number. But now look at the columns. The columns is saying, I want to have 3 columns. Can you guys, why is this one 3 columns? Can somebody tell me? This code over here, why is it 3 columns and not 2? So only this line here. I'm saying that the one at the bottom is the grid template columns. So you are setting the width for the columns. Do you want me to tell you?
It's okay now. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. What's the repeat? Repeat of 2 and one fraction unit. What does this one mean? It means give me 2 equal sizes, right? 2 columns of the same size. This one. That's what this does. And then he's adding an additional column that is 100 pixels. So these are the 2 columns of the same size, and then this is the 100 pixel column. That's how you specify it. You could have explicitly given them as well. So you have flexibility, right, in the way you set these things. Understood? But the fact that I'm using the grid shorthand, that's what I'm trying to stress. Do you guys want me to demonstrate this, or you can try this at home?
We'll try.
Okay, thank you. Now look at the second use case over here. It's a different use case. See this value, auto flow. So remember the grid auto flow property?
Yeah.
Flow means that if there is overflow, where should I go? Should I go the row? Should I create more rows, or I should create more columns? So this auto flow here is so remember, once you say the grid, everything you put at the top is for the rows, and everything you put at the bottom is for the columns, right? So see the column here, I have 1 dimension for the column, other dimension. So I'm saying give me 2 columns. One is 100 pixel and the other one is everything else. So that's what you see here. So this one is an explicit unit at the bottom. But now at the top here, we are not using explicit unit, we are using implicit rows. And when I say implicit, it's only for overflows, in the case of overflow. So if you are using the shortcut and you are trying to say that if there is an overflow, I want it to go to the row direction, then you have to just put auto flow here. And then you now specify only 1 dimension. And this 1 dimension means you are only specifying, you can only, see the problem is you can only specify the dimension for the auto flow, which will bind on all the rows anyways. Remember the grid auto rows, if you specify only 1 width, it will bind on all of them. So the key thing that we should remember is that the top part is going to be explicit. You cannot mix explicit and implicit together at the top at one place. So either you have the columns here and you're using explicit throughout, or you're using implicit throughout. Or, you know, the row side also, you can have explicit throughout or implicit throughout. So that's just a caution there, you know. So, and this works. It kind of makes sense because you have specified the columns and you're saying that if there are more columns, so right now, if you specify 2 columns, what does it mean? It means that you just want to put 2 divs in there, right? 1 and 2. That's why you say you want 2 columns. But what if you provide more than 2 items? Then there's an overflow. So where should I put it? And then you are telling them to put it on the row direction. If we switch this around, let me see, I think I switched it. Here, you can see. Here, what I'm doing, who can interpret this for me? See, don't look at the same as. The same as means that without using the shorthand, this is the way the code will be, which is good. You can even explain it using this. So the grade keyword, I have, is somebody gonna try this or I should? The rows and the columns. Oh, yeah. I'm just showing you different ways of manipulating the grid, right? Because it's a template for the whole page. So normally you don't need a lot of code. You just have to do only one thing. But I'm just showing you different ways of doing things, right? But you just need something small, maybe only the first one, and then you get what you want, right? Like if this is the template you want, you know exactly how to do it. You know, that's all that matters. Okay, I'll help you. So the row here, I'm saying that I want two explicit rows over here. So the first row, I want it to have a height of 100. And the second one, I want it to have a height of 200 pixels. And you can see that this is twice the height of this one. And once you do that, now the next question is, in the event of overflow, what should I do? And then they are saying that if there are overflows, just keep creating additional columns. But what is the width of that column? And you're saying the width of that column should be 1 fraction unit. It could be anything. It could be anything. If you say 1 fraction unit, it means divide everything there into equal parts among them. You could have put 50 pixels and then it will be 50 pixels. Understood? Okay, so now let's continue. So this one here and that are the same, but the other last use case is also very crucial. Remember that the grade is a shorthand for all the grade parent properties. Only the parent properties, that's the key here. So all that we are saying is that look at all this layout. Can you see this layout? You can just write one code and then you have this layout. That's what we are doing. So you can combine them. The properties, there are some that you can combine, there are some that you can't. So now we have to use the grade template areas now. Because the grade template areas is also one of the properties, right? Please, are you guys following? I want to explain this one, and then you have to tell me what this is doing. This one.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. It's the same concept, it's just slightly different. So I will explain this one here, and then you will tell me what this is. So I'm just showing you 3 different combinations, and essentially that is all there is, right? If you want to use the shorthand. If you don't want to use the shorthand, you can just keep using what we already do. So this is the usual approach. You want to say, I want 3 columns of the same size here. And then you are specifying the dimensions for the rows that you want. I also want 3 rows. You can see 3 rows in here. And the first one is what? 60 pixels. Second one is 180 high. And then the other one is also 60, right? Same. Now the template areas, you are saying header, header, header. You mean you want the header to occupy everything, right? Now you say this is the main section, so you're saying main, and then sidebar. In other words, in the middle, you want to divide it into 3. You want to give 1 to sidebar. You want to give 2 to the main, right? So that's what is happening here. Now footer is also taking the whole thing. So this is the usual one. If you want to do this the traditional way, this is how you do it. If you want to use a shorthand for this one here, this is the way you do it. You just use the grid and then specify the template areas. So this is a very long thing, but you can see that we put 60 here, we put 180, we put 60. All that we are saying is that the top part, we want you to have a row, the height of the row should be 60. So instead of putting it here, you can bring it here. Then the middle part, you want it to have a height of what, 180 for the row. So look at where we are putting that. And then the footer too, you are specifying the height of the footer, so you put that here. You don't have a choice. This is the way you should do it. So now, once we have this, the top part, you can see that we have combined the template areas and the template rows. We've combined it. The only thing we haven't used is the columns. So the columns, you use the slash, and then now you put the column down. How many columns you want to have. So over here, you can use the repeat. You're repeating one FR 3 times. But down here, you cannot use the repeat. In the shorthand property, the repeat doesn't work. So I just repeated it myself. I just add one FR, one FR, one FR. So you guys can see this is just one code, just one property, and it's giving me all of this. So if you study this shorthand, it can save you a lot of time. That is the point of the shorthands. But if they are confusing, you can also use this. Any questions?
No.
No.
So you see, that's why people love the grid, right? You can see just one code, you have this powerful layout. So in a company, in a software code, you probably see this in the CSS, and you will never understand what it is doing. And you don't have to understand it unless you are the one designing that page. Then you will struggle if you don't understand it. But mostly the divisions have already been done. You just want to make small change in the header. You want to make a small change in the sidebar like that. Mostly it's already done. But if it's not done, then you have to do this. And thanks to Grid, it's very easy to have the layout for your page. So now, can somebody try to explain what this is doing, this one here, and how it relates to the diagram at the bottom? Sorry, I've got to go back. Okay. What page am I on now even? Okay. Let me go back. I've got to open it. So I've zoomed in too much that now it's very hard to see. Let me just zoom out. Yeah, you can be thinking about this, please. And as soon as we are done with Grid, guys, I believe we are almost done actually, because the other properties, we've seen them. So you guys just have to practice, and you always know that the material is going to be here all the time. But master this so that you can be a master of the UI, you know. It's really powerful to be in that position. So great shorthand. Yeah, the justify content, like I said, we've seen it, so it will be easier for us. I made it too big. I'm sorry that this thing is covering. Let me go down there, you can see. Yeah. Okay, that's good. And this line over there too. Yeah. Can you guys explain to me why this code, this line here, is producing this output? It's a shorthand, right? Can you explain to me what you see?
Okay, so the grill template row are 3, and it's set for 60, which is the header.
Okay.
The main is 180, and the footer is 60.
Awesome.
So, and the grill template area says that the top part is divided into 5.
5, yes.
And it's saying header should take all the space in the topmost one, which is the header.
Yes, yes.
And hold on, sir.
Sure.
Also, and the second side, which is the main, is saying the sidebar should be at the left,
Okay.
while the remaining 4 sides should be main.
Should be the main, okay.
And the footer should be should take all the space down below.
Okay, perfect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you done? No, right?
Yeah, I'm done.
No, you're not. So the part you have, what you've said is so perfect, man. You even said it better than me. So now the last part is what you haven't said. What is that? What part does this one play?
That's to divide them into 5 places.
5 equal parts, right?
Yeah.
Equal is key here because you can see it's equal.
And
they don't have to be equal. You can make them different also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all up to you and what you want to do.
I think that's what I first said, that divided into 5 parts.
Oh, I didn't know that you were looking.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know you were looking at that part. Okay, I got you. So what does the FR mean here? 1 FR. Equal parts, right? Fractional unit, yeah. So one question, if I made this one 2, what do you think would happen to the sidebar? What if I made this one 2 FR? What do you think would happen to the header first? The header. Nothing will happen to it, right? It's taking the whole space anyway, so it will still be the same. But the footer to the same, but nothing will happen. It's still taking the whole space anyway, so it doesn't matter which one is taller, which one is smaller. But the sidebar, on the other hand, will double in size slightly. Because we are saying that the first column, which we are assigning to the sidebar, is taking 2 times the spaces that are given to the other 4. You understand what I'm saying? What I mean? See, this one says divide into 5 equal parts and give 1 to each column. If I make this one 2F, it means divide into 6 equal parts, give 2 to the first column, and then give the rest to the other 4. The other 4 should take 1 each, and then this one should take 2. So this is more like the flex grow property that we learned. I want this one to grow twice as much as the others, stuff like that. So you have that flexibility. I believe that's clear, right? Okay, so now we are moving to this ones here, which we are very familiar because of the flex container. So we don't really have to even demonstrate, but I'll show you the code, you can practice it. So justify content, justify items. Align content, align items. So on top of your head, when I say justify, what am I trying to do? Let's think about Microsoft Word. If you type something in there and you justify it, you justify your work, what do you think happens? You can see that it will space out. Can somebody tell me what happens if you justify your work in Microsoft Excel? No, not Excel, Microsoft Word. You type your essay, you say justify, what happens? Okay, when you say center, what happens? It will center the text, right? And then justify, that's what? It will evenly distribute it along the main axis or the x-axis. It will just spread them across the lines so that they won't be, say this first line ends over here and all this white space in front. It will not happen. It will spread all of them from beginning to the end. But when that is happening, everything is happening on the x-axis. or the horizontal axis. That's what we don't see. So in CSS, anytime you say justify, you want to do the alignment along the x axis, or you want to do it along the horizontal axis. So if you say justify content and you put end, it's gonna take the content from here and put it at the end of the container. If you say start, it will put it at the start. If you say middle, center, it will put it at the center. So the justify content, the adjustment is always happening along the x-axis. But align content is the same thing, just that instead of going the x direction, it's doing it on the y direction. So that's the key difference. And when you say justify content, you're talking about the whole content, not individual items. So, you know, like if you look at some of the examples that we are looking at, like this one. So I think we need to open here. If you look at these examples, so this is the whole content. And the whole content right now is fitting exactly into the container. If it didn't fit in the container, then there will be a lot of spaces around it, right? Like this one. In order to demonstrate the content, you want to make sure that the container is way bigger than the columns, the width of the columns and the width, you know. Even you could even make the rows also very small so that it will be hanging in the middle there. So when that happens, then you can use justify content. Like over here, if you use justify content, it will not really make sense because the content of this is exactly the same as what? The content of the container that it is in. So I just made this container bigger than the content. And so now justify content says, where do you want me to put the content? So as far as this container is concerned, everything in it is a content. Even though these are also elements, they are content. So the start, it takes 6 values. The start means that put it at the start of the horizontal line. End means put it at the end of it. Center means put them in the center. And then stretch says that just stretch them. So the stretch over here, you don't see the difference because the rows are already stretching. If I had made these row values very short, then the stretch will now stretch them to make sure they occupy the whole space. Yeah, something like that. Okay. So now this space between, we've seen it before, just space between. In other words, make sure they occupy the whole space, but put all the empty spaces between them. This looks like a good design. This one also says space around. Space around, we know that this space, the one that we leave here, is half of what is between them. So if you add the one that we leave here and the one that we leave here, if you add them up, you're gonna get the same width as this one. But the space around is this. It's up to you, like when you are doing the design and you want the space around, then you just use it to space out your items. If the items were, say, 5 of them, if you use space around, it will be very beautiful over here. And then you space evenly. Evenly means the space here should be equal. So this is just a value. Then justify. So this one here, I'm combining 2 of them. Align content and then justify content. So don't worry about this one. It's a very powerful one that I've done. Do you guys understand what I'm doing here? So justify content is justifying along the horizontal, as you can see. Whether you want to put spaces, you want to move all of them to the end, you want to move all of them in the middle. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Or you want me to demonstrate?
It's okay.
It's okay. Okay. Thank you. Sure. Thanks, Afi, as well. So justify content. I use a different template. You know, now you can, this template is straightforward. This one, just set the columns the same size and then same size of the row also. It's a very simple template. And I used another template over here. But it's doing the same thing, just using the same template. somehow this template, the stretch kind of took the whole space. This is what kind of I would have expected this one to take the whole space also. Surprise. Maybe I didn't use the fractional unit over here. Maybe I used the fixed unit. That's why it didn't stretch. If you are going to use the stretch, I think that you should use fractional units or percentage values so that it's easy to stretch them. If you use a fixed value, it's hard to stretch it. So this and that are the same. It's just a different template, that's all. Different values. You can see here, there is a container that is taking a lot of space and there's a small one like that. You can have any design you want. But let's do the align content and then we're gonna look at these values. So the align content is doing the same thing, but again, see, if the values it's taking the same values also, but everything is done toward the vertical direction, which is the y-axis. If you set the value to start, it will move the whole content to the top. If you set the value to end, it will move the whole content to the bottom. If you set the value to center, it will move it to the center. If you say stretch, then it is stretching toward the vertical direction. So that's why this horizontal, this one should have stretched toward this way. But I didn't do it because I guess I used an absolute unit, like I said before, that's why. But you can experiment. So now we know how to, and I used a different template here. Different template, justify content. Oh, sorry. That was, so, align content. Yeah, so I think align content, I just use one template. So now now that we know what the align content is doing and justify content is doing, can you guys understand why if I set align content to end and justify content to end, the whole content will come at the bottom here? Do you guys understand that? See,
Yes, says and over there.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
So you can see, look at the values I set up here.
Oh, it says and.
And align content is a property, and I'm giving it a value of end. And then justify content, I'm also giving it a value of end. So I'm saying that can you intuitively understand why the content will be shifted to the bottom right corner like this?
Yeah.
Can you articulate it? Why is it doing that?
So if you're saying that it's at the end, it goes towards the left.
It goes, can you say that again, please?
So it goes towards the left to the bottom. That's where it's set up for the end.
No, that's not right. You can try again. You always have to break things down in pieces, little pieces, right? Look at this. Oh, where is the other? Yeah, let's just look at this one. The justify content, you had the contents at the very beginning like this. When you set it to end, what does it do? It moves it to the end up here, right? So justify content end means carry everything, put it at the end. Now look at align content, how align content works. Align content. So now, if you look at the justify content, our thing is here. It's at the end here. But now align content end will now push it down to the end also toward the y-axis. So what you don't see is that now I've made this container very long that it's not just, so the height, this one is not taking the whole height. It's taking only part of the height and there is still more space at the bottom. So in order to be able to demonstrate this, that's how I had to make the dimensions. So that this is kind of hanging in there. It's hanging in the container. So you can go this way and then you can also justify it down this way. You get what I'm saying? Are you confused?
So
Mhm.
so why isn't the length the same as the rest of them?
What do you mean by the left?
The length in the end and
Uh,
that box.
this box here.
Can you scroll up a little bit, please? Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, this thing here is covering my view. I wish I could just remove it. So I'll teach you. So the justified content, if you put it and it means that along the y-x axis, along the horizontal axis, I want to have this at the very end. Now, align content, if you make it end also, you're saying that along the vertical, I want this content to be at the end also. The only position that can have that is here.
Okay.
This is the only position, because if you move this to this corner, align content is at the end, but justify
So
content
the start.
at the start. Yes. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to hear. But now my question is, if I want to put it in the middle, just in the middle of the box, what will it be? Center, right? Center, because at the middle, it will be at the center for justify content, and it will be at the center for align content. So this is problem solving, right? This stuff. This is how you're gonna use this one to solve problems. Just that, little problems like that. And so with a different template here, I want to cover, I wish I could cover this. So if somebody could tell me what is happening here, what combination of align content and justified content would put them at the bottom here.
So it's at the end, so it goes to the bottom. And it's at the center, so it's in the middle.
Yes. So justify is center and then align. That's right. Yep. And over here, align content I gave you guys, we just learned that. So now we are looking at the items themselves. So here it's not about the whole content. We're just focusing on the items, individual items. But it is a parent level property still. So if you say start, it will make sure that all of them are starting. Because I did put equals a big space between them, so it will align it toward the top. If you say end, it will push them toward the bottom, pushing them. And then center is centering all of them in the middle. So it's a slight difference, it's very subtle difference between these align items, but it's not the same. So it's like every item is within its own location. With the align item, that's how it's kind of working. Everything is done relative to the location of each of the items. Sorry, and then if you stretch it, each of them will stretch and take all the space available. So the last one is the place content, which we've seen. Place content is a shorthand property, and it will take align content value and then justify content value. That's it. It's just another template over there. So the first value of place content is going to be align content. So if you say start, it means you want the content to be stuck at the top. And then the end means I want to justify them. So I want them to be at the end. So it takes two values, right? And if you watch it, you can understand why place content center will put everything in the center. And then stretch, and I gave you several combinations. Okay, so you can just come here to learn this. Just go to the site, look at it, try to convince yourself why this is. So this is just a different template. Just a different template. It doesn't change anything. So also there's another one, say place items, the last combo property. So there's place content and place item. So now these items, it is focusing on the individual items. So start center means for this item, put it in the start of its location and then center it like that. So again, this is a parent level property. That's it. That's it for the grid parent properties. we know these things. We did this once for the flex. So that's why we didn't have to really demonstrate it. But now let's look at the chart level. I think the chart level, if you guys are not tired, we can look at it. It will be very fast. There's not a lot there, and we've already covered a lot of them. You see, this one is just, see, grade column start, grade column end, grade row start, grade row end. Then this is the shortcut that we saw. We've already seen the grade area also. And then this is similar concept as what we did here. So I can go through that very fast with you, since you guys are all, you know, at this point, you're very matured in this CSS stuff. Okay, I think I have them here, the children properties. If you want to know the definitions, you can just, you know, check the notes. But see, it's very short. We'll be done here very soon. We don't even have to demonstrate. I'll just go through this with you. And if you can think with me and answer questions, then it will be even faster, right? So the first thing that we look at here is the grade column start and grade column end. So let's do the start first. Remember that there are lines in the code as I showed you in the grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think over here I have columns of say 5. I have divided this whole space into 5 columns. That would have been a great information to show here, but I didn't show it. And I'm saying that for box 1, so this is at the grade item level. So you have to say dot box 1 and then just call this property. So you're saying where should the box 1 start from? So I'm saying it should start from column 2, line 2. It should start from line 2. So this is the lines, line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. So I'm saying that it should begin from line 2. So it means it's going to leave some empty spaces here and begin from line number 2. And box number 2 also, I want it to start from line number 2. So line number 2, there is already a box starting from there. So what does that mean? It means that there is an overflow. The only way for box number 2 to also start from the same line is to move to the next row. Right, so that's what it did. And line number 3 too, you want it to start from box number 2. I mean, line number 2 is occupied by box 1, box 2, so it has to move to the 3rd line to do it. So it's almost like an overflow also. And then grade box number 4, I want it to start from line number 1. So line number 1, nobody is using it, so it just started from there on the 4th line. But if I'll ask one question here. It's a tough one. Are you guys still listening to me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So again, there is a lot of repetition here, so it will be very fast. Trust me. I believe within 15 minutes we will be done. The class will end. So cheer up, okay? Cheer up. So see what is happening, right? You want to put this here, but somebody is there, so it will move forward. So right now, on the 4th element in the container, I want to put it at column number 1. And then column number 1 from here, it's moving to the next line to put it here. But you can see column number 1 is not taken by any of the other divs, right? So if I want this one to come here, instead of going to the next line and leaving all these empty spaces unoccupied, what property will I use? It is the grade auto flow. We have to use the dense, right? I gave you the answer. If you set the grade auto row flow and then you set the last property to dense, right now the flow is going to the row direction, which is the default behavior. So if you just say dense, then it will not come here. It will go and create it somewhere here or there or there. Because it doesn't want to waste spaces. So it's just, do you guys agree to that statement?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so now, thank you. Can somebody one of you should explain this diagram here. Then one of you should explain this diagram, and then we move on. Okay, so this is the start. So let me talk about the end also. So here I have the start and the end. So this one here has the start. I'm saying that begin at the line number 1 and end at line number 4. So you can see the lines 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, like I said, I've already divided these columns, the template columns. I've given it, like say, 5 columns or 6. So maybe line 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for box number 1, I'm saying that start at line number 1 and end at line number 4. So that's another way of determining the width of individual items, individual. Box number 2, I'm saying start at line number 2, 1, 2, and end at line number 3. So it will just end right there. So box number 2, number 3, I'm saying begin at line 1 and then end at line 2. That's why we see this. Now look at box number 4. I'm saying start at 1 and end at number 3. That's why you see this. So, I mean, looks like a bad template, but I'm just demonstrating how it works. You can be creative and do whatever you want. So can one of you explain? Okay, this side is clear. Let's go to the row. I want you to explain the row for me. It's the same concept. Instead of going the columns, starting from column 1, the lines, taking them on the column direction. This time you're taking them at the row direction, and it's the same, right? See, the same line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, so on. But you have to predefine the number of rows that you want so that you can now have the lines beautifully, and then you can use it. So we will leave the column start, column end, since we understand it. So, but can you apply the same principle to explain to me how this behavior is happening for the rows? So you're just thinking in reverse direction right now. You can pick any of them. If you tell me the one you are picking, then we can all focus on that, and then you can keep explaining it. Trust me, once you do the same explanation, everything.
They'll work now.
I'll do
Uh-huh.
the first one.
You choose the first one. Okay.
Is it too easy?
I don't know. No, they are all the same. Trust me. See, they are all the same. It's just the principle, right? There's nothing easy here. I can assure you that. Yeah, none of them is easy because the same principles, but the principle is at work. But explain why you have this output.
Okay, so box 1, 2, 3 seems to be the same. It goes to 2. So it starts from 1, goes to 2. Box 2, 1, 2,
No.
1, 2.
No, can you go slowly, please? You are losing me.
Yeah.
Start again, please. Go slowly. Box number 1 starts at what?
So it looks like box 1, box 2, and box 3 are similar.
They are same. They are all starting at the same line.
Yeah, which is 2.
2. So 1, 2, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So you can see all of them are on the same 2.
I have a question. I have a question. I understand what you're saying. So why is it that box 2 is here in the middle and not here or here or even here? It could have been here too, because no, it really can't be here. But can you?
That would be 3, right?
Yeah, that would be row number 3. Yeah.
Can I comment?
Is Ibrahim saying something?
Yeah, I said, can I, like,
Yeah,
it says the program is set to align sorry, box 1, box 2, box 3 on second row.
Yes, it is set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it is like that.
Yeah.
If I'm explaining this is how I would explain it. I would say that box 1 is the first element, and it's
Right.
starting at 2, so it will start at 2. If you don't
Row two.
specify where you should end, it will take only 1 unit, so 1 row unit. So box 1 is done. Now box 2 came, it wanted to begin at 2, but
But
the
it's
first
already
column,
occupied. Okay.
yeah, the first column is already occupied, so it will move overflow to the second column
Mm,
and then take the line 2 there. You can see that this line 2 is different from this line 2 because this line 2 is line 2 of column 1.
Column 1, yeah.
This is line 2 of column
Row 2 of column 2, yeah.
Yeah.
2 by 2,
Mhm.
and this is called
This one is
2 by
column 3.
1.
Yes. But now box 4, why did it come here and not here? So now box 4 is coming, and then it's supposed to begin at line 1. So it went over there. You can think about it. Sometimes you can easily, not everything makes sense. Because if you are used to thinking in columns, then you would be expecting it to come here. When you're thinking in the row, actually it goes this way. It's very hard. It's like you have turned this one, you rotate this one 90 degrees. Yeah, it's very hard to imagine it. So again, that's when we say that computer science is a lot of thinking. These are some of the things. Like your brain has to really think a lot to understand it. But that's the way it is. So this is fine. Can Ibrahim, you want to pick one more and explain? Maybe.
Well, maybe to the second one, and
Hey,
it's the same concept. Like,
okay.
start from so
One,
box 3. Okay, box 1. Box 1 was stated to start at row 2.
Okay, and it is doing that, right? 2.
Yes, and box 2 stated to start at row 3.
Okay, so 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. So
3, yeah. And box 3 to take up the first
1.
row.
Okay, so it's going this way, so it's taking it.
Which is box 4 is going to row 3, which
And
is
it's already
this.
occupied.
Yeah, but it's already occupied, so it's moved to the next column to it, which is 2.
Yes. Yeah, good one. Can we, I thought you would pick this one since it has the end, but
Okay,
I can do it.
okay, she's gonna do it.
okay. Yeah, let's see.
So box 1 starts on the first row.
Okay, first row.
Box 1.
And it ends
at 4.
So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the very end. Okay.
Okay.
Taking the
So
whole.
yeah, box 2. It starts at row 2, so the second line, and then it ends at 3. So 1, 2, 3.
Move forward. Yeah. Actually, this is the default behavior, so you didn't even have to mention it by time. I mentioned it, so it will end there. Okay.
And then box 3. So it's
start at row 1.
So row 1, it ends at 2.
Actually ends at box 3 ends at 2. Okay, that's right. Okay.
And then 4 starts at 1 and ends at 3. But why would box 2 be default? Because it all starts on line 1, right? Row 1.
I didn't understand the question.
No, you said that box 2 was default.
No, what
like was an overflow. Sorry, overflow, right?
No. I said default.
Oh, default.
I said default because see, the weight is only one unit from 1 to 2. So what I'm saying is that if you didn't specify the 2 here, it will still take the same thing,
See the same. Okay.
Mm, okay.
right? Normally you want to use when you want to take multiple rows or multiple columns.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, it's the same as box 3 also. I just gave it 2 to 3, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, just one jump. Okay, so we understand this. Thank you. Now the grid column shorthand, this is the grid column shorthand here. We used this one before. This is a combination of the row start and the column start. So you can have the row and the column together. That is what this is. Oh, sorry. This is a shorthand, and if it is grid column, you are combining column start, column end in one go. Which is instead of saying grid column start 1 and then grid column end 4, you can just say grid column 3/4. So it's the same principle. You guys, you understand what I mean? So grid column 1, 4. What does it mean? It means that grid column start is 1 and grid column end is 4. So for box 1, starting at column 1, so line 1, column line 1, and then it's ending at 4. So this only has 4 units, so it will take the whole space. And then 2 starts as column line 2, and it ends at line 3 right there. So this is a shorthand, very easy shorthand. And we have the same shorthand for the row. Specify the row start and row end in one go. So again, you see, I worked hard to put all this together. You can even just look at it and think and get what is happening. But later on, if I get some time, I'll put a little bit of text description here. But my goal is that if you want the text description, you would just come here and read it also. So I have them there too. So now you can see that everything is finishing. So because we talked about the combination of the column start and the column end, row start, row end, that is when the span comes into play. So instead of just saying 1 and 2, you can just say span from 1 to 4. So if you use the span, it's always starting from the beginning to that point, to that number that you specify. So instead of saying from line 1 to line 3, you can say span 3. Span 3 means whatever item that you call it on will begin from 1 and end at 3. That is a concept. And we used one of them before. So over here, I have a lot of examples here to demonstrate the span 4, span 1. See, like box 2, span only 1. It means that start from 1 and end right there. Span 1 is a very tricky one because it's like, just begin. If you begin, you didn't specify the end, essentially. So it will just go 1 unit. So it was a tough test. I don't know why I did that test. It doesn't make any sense. But again, you can still see the logic in place. So all of these are templates, right? See, these are beautiful templates. Here we are calling it box 1, but in whatever application that you're designing, it will be different names. We don't know what you're doing, right? You can customize it into anything you want. So right now we are done with the top part also. Everything from here to here is done. Of course, this one we did it because we did it along with the template areas. I said they go together. So the only thing left is justify self, align self. Again, we've done this before, so it will be very fast. We've done it. We saw this in the flex. So let me just make this slightly, reduce it a little bit. So let's do a little thinking here. Then, that's the last thing, only this. So justify, align, and then place. You can see the place is just a combination of these two, so it's easy. This is a shorthand property. But you see justify and then align. So justify means what? The horizontal direction. alignment. Alignment, then alignment means what? The vertical direction, that's all. But you are doing this on one item only. So what is happening is that the rest of the items, they are not affected. So it begins from here. So justify self, I'm saying that start. So you pick only box one and I'm saying that make it start. So it's gonna justify this at the start of the container, its own container. It doesn't affect the rest of the other items. And if you give it a value of end, see, but I'm not giving the value to box one, I'm giving it to box two. So box two here, I'm saying justify itself to the end of the container. So suddenly it froze it, it shrank to the end. I think that the default behavior is the stretch. The stretch is already stretching, taking everywhere. So the stretch, nothing really happens. It's already stretching. Box three, I'm centering it. So you can see box three here is shrinking to the center. Understood? But what is the center? It is center along the horizontal. Centering along the horizontal. So the opposite is the align self. It's doing the same thing, but this time instead of horizontal, it's doing it in the vertical. So if you call the start, it's gonna shrink it to the top like this. If you call box two and make it at the bottom, to push it to the bottom, you can center it that way and then stretch. Understood?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know, yeah. I mean, worst case, just look at it, go to the site, look at it carefully and see why this is happening. It will help you to understand it very fast. Now the shorthand. Shorthand is that you want the combination of the two. It's the last thing that we are looking at. And we are done with grade. Imagine that, guys. This is incredible. Now it's like you have a nuclear weapon in your hands. Like, in other words, the grid is so powerful. That's what I mean. As far as designing the front end is concerned, like you guys, you are masters at this point. Because you can see JavaScript is just coding. So that's not the front end. It's used at the front end, but it's a different thing altogether. So the main front end is the HTML and the CSS. Then this JavaScript is just coding. So I think that's a profound statement. So now let's see what is happening here. Can somebody explain what this is? Just, you can see the same concept, right? The same concept we did, but this time it's just on box one. Always the alignment is the first value, the horizontal, and the vertical is the first value. I don't know why. So start means that push it to the top, and then justify says that push it to the end. So top and end, this is the only location it can be. So can somebody explain box two? And then help me explain the rest, and then we are done.
So box two, is the end.
The end for what?
Is that number
Alignment.
align.
Vertical the end. Okay. So it's at the end. Okay. Continue. So alignment is at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now what is next again? Now justify is also saying
Center.
center. So at the end you center. If justify had said start, where would it be? Here, right?
It would be where box one is, right? No?
Okay, thank you. Now what about this one? This exercise, this one.
So this says center. Box three.
So it will put it in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alignment is center and then vertical
Center.
Mostly this is the best use case. You always want to center it most of the time. Yeah. What about this one?
So this one is stretch.
So the stretch is
Starts.
the alignment. So
Mhm.
alignment says stretch toward the horizontal, the vertical.
Mhm.
And then the start means justify means along
First.
the axis start.
Yeah.
So if I say stretch and then center, where will it go? It will be the same height and then move to the middle,
To
right?
the middle. Yeah.
Beautiful, guys, you are smart. So you see, this is a pretty theoretical activity, but if you understand this one and you're able to remember the properties, then you would have no difficulty at all. You can do any design you want. But you can see it's all about the template. Can you guys imagine that display property, the display property, just one value grade would have all these lessons? Yeah.
Yeah.
So before I started teaching CSS, I didn't know that all of this were this complicated. But if you do development with understanding, then there is nothing that can overcome you, because you know what you're doing. And if you have a good material like this also to refer to for your own note taking, then you are perfect. You can see always you just need something very small, and then you get what you want. Like if you want a template like this, you just do this and you are done. You don't need to concern yourself with all the other stuff, but it's like a language. Once you know it, you can construct any sentence you want. So these are tools that we have that we can think within the context of. So that being said, that will be the end of today's class. Please, do you guys have any questions for me?
No.
No.
So this site is under development, and that's why some of the links don't work, but I'm continuing to work on it. So the assignment for tomorrow, the same assignment that you're doing, I want us to do it using the grid instead of the flex. But you don't need to do it because you guys are busy. You may want to do other things. You may want to even continue with the one that you're doing now and finish it. Just put some content in there, and then tomorrow when we meet, I'll try to do the same assignment using the grid. And if we have some time, we're gonna attempt to do this project also. It will be very fast, it will be very, very fast. Even this one too, here too, they are using the grid. We can develop the whole page in a very, very short amount of time because of the grid. So does that look nice? And then that may be the end of CSS, but I'm going to look around and see if there is any other important concept that we need to cover next week. If not, we'll begin the JavaScript next week, and then you guys will be unbeatable, man.
Thank you.
Sure. You are welcome, guys. Please do have a beautiful rest of the day.
Yes, you too.
You too. Thank you.
I appreciate
Bye.
it.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.